Hey gang, coming at you again today with a couple wedding stories. First up, Bridemaidzilla ruins a 12-year friendship over a speech. This happened at a wedding I attended, and it's honestly so ridiculous you'd think it happened in a movie. But it was real and cringeworthy, but also hilarious, so I'm sharing it with you all. My friend was getting married to the love of her life, and had one of her best friends be a bridesmaid in the wedding. They had been best friends for 12 years, and both of them were in my friend group, so I've witnessed their relationship up close. The bridesmaid is a girl who we always say lives in her own head with no idea how the real world works. Very spoiled. At 32, she still lived at home and her parents paid all her bills. She then suggested they move out of the house so her and her boyfriend could live together in the nice house. Somehow, they agreed, so they bought themselves a condo and continue to pay for their daughter to live in their house. She is still in school working on a degree that should have taken her 2 years, but she's on year 7 of it. Constantly complaining about having group projects that don't go well, but it's always her partner's fault. Common denominator, baby. If every single person you've worked with has issues, it's most likely you're the one that's hard to work with. And knowing her, I can tell you that she is very hard to be around. Backstory aside, she's in the wedding. Leading up to the wedding, you could tell things weren't going well. I walked in on the bridesmaid cry, screaming at the bride about how she was trying to do something nice for the bride. I immediately walked out because it was ugly. Bride insisted she didn't want to talk about the bridesmaid leading up to the wedding, but after the disastrous speech, she let it all out. One of the big issues was the plan to get ready the day of the wedding. The bridesmaids suggested a makeup artist for the bride, who then hired that makeup artist and her assistant to do the bride, mother bride, maid of honor, and 3 bridesmaids the morning of the wedding. Bride said the makeup artist would do her mother, and maid of honor, and the assistant would do the 3 bridesmaids. The bridesmaid then threw a fit because it was her makeup artist, so there was no way the assistant would be doing her. She needed to be done by the main artist, and she should go first. Bride tries to explain that it was the most important to do herself, her mother, and maid of honor. Drama ensues. The bride sits her down and tries to explain that her wedding day is about her. Every other day of their friendship is always about the bridesmaid, so she really needed to let her wedding day be about her. The message didn't really get through. Leading up to the wedding, the bridesmaid was insistent on doing a speech. The groom told the bride multiple times to just say no because he knew it wouldn't go well. But the bride caved because there was no saying no to the bridesmaid. Smart man he is. Speech time comes along, and it was a train wreck. The bridesmaid leads off with how they've been friends for 12 years, but it would have been longer. She had wanted to be friends with the bride long before that, but the bride was mean to her and would make fun of her with her other friends. She then said she knew they had to be friends when, one day, she asked the bride if her pants made her look fat, and the bride said yes. She knew that honesty was something she needed in life. Cue everyone wide-eyed and staring in disbelief that she just painted the bride to be a huge bitch. Bridesmaid goes on to talk about the 2 times her own boyfriend tried to break up with her. Those stories have nothing to do with the bride. She never even mentioned the bride. To top it off, her boyfriend was at the wedding, now totally red in the face. Spoiler alert, they're still together and now married. Unbelievable. The speech wrapped up with a well wish to the couple. She never turned any of her stories around to say anything nice about the bride, just shat on her in the first story and then talked about herself for the rest. Our entire table was sitting there in shock, trying to discreetly yell at her to stop talking and to sit down. It was hilarious but painful to watch. The next day, their friendship ended. Not because of the awful speech, and not because the bride was hurt by the speech and her behavior leading up to the wedding, but because the bridesmaid was upset that the bride didn't like the speech. She genuinely thought she made a good, thoughtful speech, and the bride should have loved it. The bride told her honestly that it was rude and in poor taste, and it was all about the bridesmaid. I guess she didn't appreciate her honesty after all because the bridesmaid couldn't forgive her for not liking the speech, and that was the end of their friendship. This whole story reminded me a bit of that Black Mirror episode of those frenemies with the girl going to the wedding and needed to have an online qualification, etc., etc. Season 3, I think it was. I don't know. I digress. For real though, she sounds like a train wreck of a person. Hard to imagine having a friendship with someone like that. I really hope that nobody has to experience an awful speech like this in person during their wedding. This next story gets intense, so make sure to stick around to the end for the update. Alright, let's get into it. User Bow Down Please asks, am I the asshole for being upset with my $150 engagement ring? My fiancé is quite well off. and while I don't make as much as him, I certainly would not be struggling on my own. He rotates between a few very expensive watches that he wears to work, and while we have a good grasp on financial literacy, we aren't shy about spending for the important parts of life. We openly share finances, so I know he isn't secretly in debt or any such nonsense. The ring is nice and understated, but more of a nice stacker than an engagement ring to show off. The stone, which I'm doubtful is being a diamond, is quite small. It's not an heirloom. When friends or family get engaged, there's always the excitement in sharing the news, and inevitably someone will ask to see the ring, and then everyone coos over it, and it's a good time. When I showed mine, the mood got awkward, and they feigned excitement just long enough until it was okay to change the topic. This is not a knock on them, they're just terrible liars. I would like to make clear that I am not expecting a 3-month salary ring or an over-the-top wedding. However, this is a piece I will be wearing daily for decades, and is largely considered a symbol of his love. I know not all feel this way, but we do, or at least I thought we did. But I really don't think I'm out of line for thinking of it as a long-term investment piece, given the amount of wear it will see and the sentimentality behind it. Surely it's worth more than a gaming console. Am I the asshole here? Edit. I'm getting a lot of the same questions, so I thought I would put the answers here. We had briefly talked about overall style, and he has access to my jewelry box to know the stuff I typically wear. As the price of the ring wasn't very important to me, the budget for it was never really discussed, which I see as a mistake now, but I didn't realize this could be a problem. Price is not important so much as I don't care if he spent $1,000 or $100,000 on it, but this ring looks cheap. It is not quality craftsmanship. The dampened excitement of showing off my ring was only a part of my post, the rest being that his drastic lowball on a piece I will be wearing every day for the rest of my life doesn't seem like the symbol of love one traditionally associates with engagement and wedding pieces. It's about having a very wealthy fiancé that invests more into the latest gaming console than he does a lifelong symbol of our love. To you, a ring might be just a ring, but unless otherwise discussed, it would be silly to assume it to be a throwaway item. In my culture, as well, the engagement ring is paired with the wedding band, not replaced. We share our finances, and I saw the charge on the bank statement. If he paid in cash as well, then he overpaid. Given that he has bought me more expensive jewelry in the past and sees what I wear on a regular basis, for him to lowball an important item, this much seems pretty far out of left field and not something I would have thought I would have needed to clarify with him, even if we had a longer conversation about it. Obviously, in hindsight, I should have. I think I'm more hurt with what it says to give your fiancé such a low-priced ring when money clearly isn't the issue than the fact that the ring itself was low budget. If we were worse off and $150 took an effort to save for, I would be over the moon at what he got me and shoving it in everyone's face. However, this is not remotely the case. He has gifted some diamond studs and other fine jewelry before and will splurge a bit if it's something for the both of us. For example, a surprise getaway weekend for the holiday. He doesn't throw his money around needlessly, but he isn't stingy. To be blunt, it's a cheap ring. In look and cost. Yes, he could have spent hours picking out the indie jeweler to get the ring that is nothing like what I have or have ever mentioned liking in a much lower price bracket than we would ordinarily spend on just regular accessories. However, I don't feel like I'm making a large leap in assuming he didn't. To me, this is about more than just the fact that he didn't get the exact style I had in mind. I also take exception to the people here acting like being unhappy with the ring means I'm unhappy with the engagement. Nowhere have I ever said this to be the case. Life isn't an all or nothing game. I can be unhappy with the ring while still being madly in love with my fiancé and thrilled to spend our lives together. We will be talking about this for sure, but I know this can be a touchy subject and wanted an objective eye on it first. I will update this post after the conversation. Update. He came home and we were settling down, and around dinner, I started the conversation with, "Honey, I'd like to talk about the ring." And before I could finish, he just blew up, started yelling, "Finally!" and how I'd ruined everything by waiting so long. To be brief, he bought a ring from a jeweler who got bad reviews so that when I got upset over it, he could dump me under the guise that I was a gold digger. He has apparently been having an affair. Turns out COVID had shortened his work hours, not extended, with a younger model that he's earned, but knew that breaking things off when everyone loved me so much would hurt his optics. So he had to make it my fault. He knew that leaving this pariahship would gain him sympathy, and there was a lot of rhetoric that clearly wasn't his own words, but something he was parroting from what I highly suspect is from a much too influential work friend that I've had disagreements with in the past. Changes I had attributed to work stress are glaringly obvious to me now as symptoms of something more malicious under the surface, and I feel really ashamed I didn't see things more clearly earlier or wasn't somehow able to head things off before they got this far. I won't be sticking around to dig any deeper, but I know my now ex-fiancé would not have done and said the things he did without being pushed from bad influences behind the scenes. This doesn't mean I forgive him. I think he's incredibly weak and feeble-minded for letting this happen to us. But I also doubt I will be contacting many of our mutual friends as the dust settles. I left in the middle of his tirade about the 15-minute mark, and I'm staying with my mother. I haven't cried yet, and I think I'm still waiting for it to all suddenly make sense. But I know, logically, it might not ever. Thank you to everyone who responded to my post and offered your thoughts. I don't think anyone could have predicted what was going to happen from the information I gave, and now I'm off to r/like us and r/ibleach, until the waterworks decide to flow and I can have a good cry over it all. On the plus side, if there is one, is that I don't have to wear the hideous ring anymore. I have to admit, OP, I seriously was not expecting that ending at all when I first started reading your story. I can't believe that this guy went through the trouble to elaborately first get your hopes up about marriage and then use it as a tool to uphold his social standing among family and friends by framing you as a gold digger. In my opinion, what he did was despicable, especially considering that he was cheating the whole time and now trying to get everyone to side with him. I hope you are able to get the true story across to everyone, especially yourself for closure. I'm not sure if you are actually a gold digger or not, but I think it makes sense to be upset about the ring in the first place, and nobody deserves to be treated that way. If he had a problem, he should have just ended it to your face without making a scene. Good luck.